Scruffy Audio Network.
Hey, this is a real special show for me today with my new father that has taken me under his wing the last 23 years, Mr. Big Jim Haslam. How you doing?
I'm doing fine, Charles. How you doing?
This is a blessed Friday having the big man in here. So this is going to be a cool show. I'm really excited about it because with people like you not in my life, I wouldn't be where I am today. So I wanted to humbly say thank you for that.
Hey, the feeling's mutual, buddy.
Well, and it's a two-part show today. We're going to talk about the one question I ask all my athletes, and the one thing I do ask real quick, Mr. Haslam, is don't break my English apart. I know I don't speak well. And I'm unshaven my hair, so, that's...
Well, this isn't televised, is it?
It could be YouTube, yeah.
Oh, well, okay. Then we need to work on your appearance.
So we need to work on
Hannah said she was in charge of that.
And I failed miserably at that. I don't know why he keeps me around.
You could never play for the Yankees when George Steinbrenner was there, could
you?
No,
or General Nealon.
Okay, no, definitely not General Nealon.
Yeah, so he could tell stories after stories. All right, I open up the question with my athletes. When did you know you were different? With CEOs, doctors, like your son who was on here, Jimmy Haslam Jr., when did you know you wanted to be in the oil, gas, convenience store business?
Well, it was... back when I was growing up, your life was structured. You went to high school, then I was fortunate enough to come to college because I had a football scholarship. Then you go in the service. This was during the Korean War, and you had to go in the service for 2 years. And when you came out of the service, for the first time I realized in my life, I wasn't in school, I wasn't playing ball, I wasn't in the service. I was going to have to get a job. And it's kind of interesting. I kind of wanted to be a high school football coach, but it was February of 1955. Jimmy was almost a year old, and when I talked to him, I could have had a couple jobs, but they wouldn't start paying until August. Well, that wasn't going to work. And then I interviewed for 2 jobs in Knoxville. One was selling advertising at a TV station, and the other was working for a man named Sam Claiborne, the father, who had a chain of gas stations. And being the very intelligent person that I am, I thought that TV wasn't going to make it. So I decided to go work for this guy who had a chain of gas stations. And after 2 or 3 years, I realized that I really liked this kind of thing, and I wanted to start our own chain of gas stations. So in 1958, we opened our first pilot gas station.
Do you have any regrets of not taking a football coach job?
No. Jimmy was talking one time when Lane Kiffin was here and Monty Kiffin was the defensive coordinator. And Jimmy said, well, somebody asked Jimmy, what was happening if you and your dad were he was head coach or you were head coach and one of y'all was the coordinator? And he said, well, if I were the head coach and he were the coordinator, I would have fired him at halftime, but he'd have quit 5 minutes before I fired him. No regrets.
No regrets. All right, so take us through that timeline, because I know I've heard tons of different stories of, traveling with you all over the place to football games and wherever we go and working out. The stories are amazing, but if you could put it together of I think you started your first one in Virginia?
Yeah, the man I was working for was a real good guy. He taught me everything I knew about business and the gas station business, and he had given me a small bit of ownership in a company that he just started called Sale Oil Company. And so when I left and started our own business, I agreed to him that we wouldn't compete with him. So Virginia was kind of wide open. So we our first location, we bought a piece of property in Roanoke, Virginia, and I was coming home one day, and there was a location in Gate City, Virginia, which is really across the state line from Kingsport, Tennessee, and gasoline was cheaper there. Taxes, cigarettes were cheaper. That was back before there was any kind of legalized liquor in Tennessee, and there were state liquor stores in Virginia. So everybody came and crossed the line, and I was coming home. I just went out there, and there was a gas station that was closed. It was owned by a fellow named Vernon Bays, and I pulled in there and I said, "Vernon, what's going on? You aren't selling gas. We're just selling cigarettes." And he said, "Well, I have trouble paying for my gasoline." I said, "Well, why don't you sell me this location?" And I said, "What do you want for it?" And he said, $10,000. And I said, "Well, I'll give you 6." And this was a Thursday. And he said, "Could you close Monday?" And I said, "Yes." So we went up there on Monday. It was November 20th, 1958, and we started selling Pilot gasoline. And we've been selling Pilot products, now diesel fuel and food and all this other things ever since. So let's see, so, today's the 4th, so that's 27 and 27 days and not 20. So 47 more days, we'll be 61 years old.
And he's a whiz with numbers, as you would know, Laura. His Batman and Robin are here. She's takes care of him now. So you didn't do anything in Knoxville at first. Everything was in Virginia.
Yeah. And then we opened our first store in Knoxville, which is where our convenience store is on the campus. We opened it about 2 years after we got started. I got along so well with Sam Claiborne. I told him I had a chance to get this store in Knoxville. He said, "Go ahead." And so, but our real Tennessee expansion didn't start until the middle 60s.
So the one on Cumberland on the corner is the first one?
First one in Knoxville.
First one in Knoxville.
Now, it's been torn down and remodeled 7 or 8 times.
And those are called the C stores, correct?
It's called convenience stores.
I feel like I could not run Pilot, but be a part of it. I've been around it. I could know that Mountain Dews are a big seller at the convenience stores and Marlboro Lights. I know those numbers pretty well. I don't know if they're still going on. That one small one right there on North Shore, that C store, the parking is incredible.
Yeah.
And they didn't anticipate that. And the one at Cedar Bluff by Dunkin' Donuts, that Pilot, the parking there and the traffic, it's a mess there. So again, this timeline is going to be amazing for everybody out there listening. How do you know? You talk to every businessman. We know them all here, and I train all the DeBusks and you guys. And Brian DeBusk would always say, "What's enough?" And he would say, "Just a little bit more." When do you know, like the C stores, did you have a number, like, did you know when you started that first one for $6,000 that you wanted to go from here to here to, did you have numbers like, I want 30, I want this?
Well, when I was at the University of Tennessee, I majored in finance, and you had to write a term paper. And I wrote this paper that we'd start this company in 1958, and that by 2019 we'd have 650 travel centers and be in 47 states and 4 provinces in Canada. I wrote this all out.
No, you didn't.
No, I tell you, we had no idea or no plan. We started off with gas stations. In the 1970 or 71, we figured out, hey, this isn't going to work. We have to pay so much for the property, so we got in the convenience store business. And in 1980, we opened our first travel center. In November of we got the idea in 1980. In November of 1981, we opened our first travel center in Corbin. They've evolved. It was at first just a convenience store with diesel pumps behind, and now it is what you see today. It's a big location. We can park usually 100 trucks. We sell gasoline. We have a convenience store inside, so to speak, with the same things you have in a convenience store. We have a restaurant. We have Wendy's. We have Arby's. We have more Subways than anybody in the country. We have some Taco Bells. We have some Moe's. We have our own food concept, PJ Fresh. So it's come a long way from that one single gas station.
And you have showers.
And we have showers. Yeah, you can stop and get a shower.
Yeah, I need to shower more. But when we stop,
and we have a barber shop too.
Let me guess, Floyd's working.
When can I interview you?
Shoot, that would be horrible. Nobody wants to hear that. That's crazy.
Excuse me.
All right, so you take me through. I remember being with Jimmy a lot of the times. Two things I was with a lot when we would bike the boulevard, you and I would, and Bill was running for mayor. And Laura, you know, you would just die some of the things. I'd have to hold the bike up while you have to take a phone call because it was very serious about Bill being mayor. And then Jimmy would always have to go outside and take phone calls when he was doing the merge with Flying J. Uh-huh. Take me through that for a minute because that's not like something overnight. That was
Flying J.
Yeah.
Well, Flying J was our biggest competitor to a company out of Ogden, Utah, and it was started by a man named Jay Call, who's a little younger than I am, and he was an airplane pilot, so he called it Flying J. They were our biggest competitor, and they also had a couple refineries, and they got in some other businesses. And we had talked to them a couple times in the early 2000s about making some kind of combination, but nothing ever came of it. And then in 2008, during the recession, and the banks started tightening up, and they had some issues with their refineries and their crude oil that wasn't hedged, and they had to file for Chapter 10 bankruptcy. So we, during the time, we talked to them, and we worked out a deal where we would loan them some money so they could come out of bankruptcy, and then we combined the two companies. It was a very difficult deal to work out. That took maybe 6 to 9 months because Conoco Oil Company owned an interest in it, and we had to take them out, and it was a very complicated deal. And nobody but Jimmy Haslam could have worked it out, I'll be honest with you. He had he just was going to get it worked out and worked. Well, then we had to get the financing worked out, which wasn't easy, but we were able to work it out. But then we had to get the government approval since you're combining two companies that were competitors. And that took the Federal Trade Commission 6 or 9 months. So from the time we started, it was about a 1.5-year process to get it all worked out. But it's been good. The Flying J people, J. Call's family, Crystal Maglet and her brother have an interest now in pilot travel centers, and it's been a very good combination for everybody.
So with the term, they were your number one competitor, right? Uh-huh. So would that be like, if you can't beat them, join them?
Well, it was more a combination, and you see it so much in business today where two companies can have all kinds of efficiencies by working together. And you eliminate a lot of your overhead like that, and it just makes them more efficient a company when you can put companies together. And all kinds of companies are doing it now.
And the number one thing why they do it would be?
Well, why you do it is you can lower your costs. I mean, if you've got this gym and you've got 2 more gyms, you can use the same infrastructure. You can have these 2 people doing things at other locations, and so it won't cost you as much per client to operate at the 3 gyms as it would at one gym. It would cost you more to take care of that one person. So our customers are better off because it costs us less to be able to take care of the customers because of the economies of scale.
So you could expand by keeping the same infrastructure.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
God, I wish I listened more in school. That's smart.
Hey, you've done pretty well.
Well, I mean, it's just been a hard work, but I wouldn't even think that. Because people have asked me to franchise the building to Nashville, and you know that. I've taken all my business things through you guys, and they're like, well, how do you duplicate another Petrone in Nashville? How does he sit in that building?
You have a brand, and your brand is a little different. Your brand is you.
So,
it's a little hard. It's a little harder to do that than our brand is. We can go out to Sacramento, California, and our brand is known, and we can take that brand there. We don't have to be there. If you went and started a place in Sacramento, California, you'd have to be there.
And that's funny you say that, and that's a segue into the next is I do think about that when I drive through the pilots on like a Sunday. Laura, that's crazy how you think like that, owning your own business and being so hands-on and being called out all the time of like, you got to be hands-on. Knowing that like they're at the football game Sunday and this is running this way, that would drive me nuts not knowing that would run that way. And the only reason you say that is Jimmy's always going, how'd the toilets look? How'd the bathrooms look? Every time you go through something. Is that something you put into his head?
I mean.
Do you understand what I'm saying
with
that?
Exactly what I'm saying. And we're 24/7, 365. We never close. When Laura became my assistant, I said, Laura, you're 24/7, 365, And so, Natalie will say, well, you can't call her Sunday afternoon or Monday night at 10 o'clock. I said, yeah, I can.
Yeah.
She's like the store. She's always open. So you have to have that, you have to know, and you have to have standards. And if you go into say you're driving out, let's say you're driving up 81 and you stop at our store at Straw Plains or White Pond, say it's the first one where 81 breaks off. And you have a good experience. So you're up in Virginia, you're in Withville, Virginia, and you say, oh, there's another pilot flying J. So you stop in there, and the restrooms aren't clean. Well, your next stop might have been up in Maryland at Hagerstown. You're going up 81, and there's a pilot, and you say, I don't want to stop there. Last time I stopped at a pilot, the restrooms weren't clean. So when you have a chain operation, your chain is only as strong as its weakest link. So we we have three things we talk about when a guest comes in. We call what we call meet and greet. You walk in the door. How are you today, sir? What can I help you with? Smile, meet and greet. The second thing we have is call for help. If one of the lines is long at where the cashier is, he or she needs to, and it's not, they need to call somebody to come get on the next cash register so people don't have to wait. And the third are restrooms. And we grade everything every month on those three things. And last month, for example, our restrooms came out 90%. Well, I don't think you ever be 100%, but 90% is pretty good. So
it's an A.
It's an A.
On some scales, right?
It's an A. But ever since we started in business, we've talked about having clean restrooms. And, there are three reasons people stop on the interstate. 1, to get fuel, 2, to eat, and 3, to go to the restroom. And if you want them to stop for your fuel and your food, you're going to have clean restrooms.
So that's where it came from.
That's where it came from.
That's pretty neat. Now, do you constantly, I know what you and Jimmy do, and he told me you guys had a great time a couple of weeks ago, just got in the car and drove.
Yeah.
He's loving spending time with you. But you do it, and I know Jimmy does it. You still are hands-on because you go through all the stops. I remember, I don't know if Jimmy does it anymore. He's so busy, but he used to be dropped off on the West Coast and drive back and stop at all the stores. The hands-on thing, like I was talking about, are you constantly thinking, I hope this store is running efficiently right now while I'm watching a game?
Yeah.
Or do you have the right people in place and go, I'm out of it?
Well, we can't do it. Okay, we can't all do it. You have to start at the store level. At the store level, then we have the region level. There are 10 stores in the region, and the division level there are 7 regions, and then so on. And then Jason Nordine runs all the stores. Well, you got to be strong at each level, and you have to have the same standards at each level. And we have to constantly tell people what the standards are. It's funny, of course, I don't go out and visit stores like I used to, but they always know that when I go in the store, first thing I do is go to the restroom. And sometimes somebody will see me come in the store, and they'll come start talking to me and try to get me to wait for a minute, and somebody else runs in and makes sure the restrooms are clean.
You know that.
Yeah, you can see it, but what we have to make sure of is that they think we're coming every day, because we aren't the ones that are important. They think we're important, but the customer's important. And that restroom has to be clean for that customer, not for Jimmy or me or Ken Parent or Jason Nordine, all the management people in the company. We aren't the important ones looking at the restrooms. The customer, our guests are. And so that has to be part of the culture.
I've even heard that they call ahead.
Oh, yeah,
and
they
say,
call
hey,
ahead.
he's looking at stores. He's coming up, and then it's crazy. So you know the human behavior of that. That's wild.
Oh, yeah. Once we get in one area, the word's out.
The word's out.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I think that's pretty cool. All right, so you go through now. Where is it now? I know Jimmy was having his things going on with Canada, and knowing the structure is a little bit different up there. And even when I had Jimmy on, we even talked about New Jersey of still full service.
Full service,
and that's how Jimmy started pumping gas at full service.
Yeah.
When did all that switch to where New Jersey's still like that? But
well, there are a couple states, New Jersey and Oregon, where they have to pump the gas. Self-service kind of started in the 70s, I guess. And when we first became aware of it, we had a store in Hickory, North Carolina, and different states had different laws, but North Carolina had it where you could have self-service. So we took the store in Hickory, and gasoline was then selling, 50, 60 cents a gallon. And we got, for self-service, we had it 2 cents less, which was a big deal if you're selling 50 or 60 cents a gallon. So I went over to Hickory to see how he was doing. So one night I was over there, and it was a spring night, and it was about 7 o'clock at night. And this lady came up, and she was driving an upscale car. And she was obviously going out. She had cocktail attire on, nice dress, high heels and everything. And she got out, and she started pumping her gas herself. And I went over there and I said, ma'am, would you mind if I ask you a couple of questions? And I said, I'm with this company. And she said, no, go ahead. And I said, now, why in the world? You're obviously going out. You're well-dressed. Why are you pumping your own gas? And she pointed at our sign and then the sign at the gas station across the street. And she said, listen, buddy, for 3 cents a gallon, I'll pump my own gas. Well, we learned a lesson then, that people were very willing to pump their own gasoline. It was not a problem, and so we came from a full-service company to a completely self-service company almost overnight. And the only place we waited on these places where the states make you do it.
Wow, so you cut out employees.
No, we cut out the people pumping
gas.
The gas.
Right.
Shut out the cashiers inside.
Right. So they would report on shifts just like the cashiers
that's
inside.
Exactly right.
Right.
Yeah. And they would have, it was interesting, they would have what they called a changer. And back then, most business was cash. You had a little changer that had pennies, nickels, dimes, quarters in it. And somebody come in and get $3 of gas, they just give you $3. But if they filled it up and it was $5.52, well, they gave you a $10 bill, and you gave them $4, and then you gave them 48 cents. You punched three pennies, a nickel, a dime, another nickel, and a quarter, and handed it to
And
them.
it was the gas station guy that did that, right?
Yeah, it was the gas
like
station
sitting
guy,
out there doing
the guy on the island that
Yeah.
did it.
Yeah. My father used to pump gas, and I always thought he was super rich. You'd drive by the gas station, and he'd have all his money in his pocket because he was doing change.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that's right.
So take me, if you could share the one story that you've told me 28,000 times about your first cell phone in your car, and then phone booths. Ben, you would remember this at 25 years of age, but this big cat right here, had to make all his calls in phone booths that weren't they weren't like his restrooms.
Well, yeah, back.
He had the big case phone, like the huge box phone.
The two stories. Back before you had cell phones and everything, you had to use. They were just pay telephones, and all businesses had them. But you'd be driving down the highway, and there'd be a payphone, a little booth you could stop in, and any place, the rest centers on the interstate, airports just lined with payphones. And back when it was just me at Pilot, and there were all kinds of decisions to make, we were doing all the pricing ourselves and everything, and everybody knew that I'd call the office at 11 and 4, and they'd call in there because they couldn't call me before cell phones. So they'd call in the office, and I'd stop at a phone booth, and I'd write down the 5 calls I'd make and have to make them and call and everything. Well, finally, a car phone came out, and it was not a cell phone; it was a radio.
Was it a CB?
Well, it was just a great big radio, and it had different channels. And like you had 3 channels in Knoxville, and you go out of town and you'd punch other channels. And of course, anybody could listen to you. But the funniest thing ever, when I first got this thing, I had a good friend, Jimmy Smith, you knew him, and he ran a big bank here in town. And one day I pulled in his driveway, and his bedroom was upstairs, and he always worked a lot in his bedroom on weekends. And as I was coming up his driveway, I called him, and I was talking to him, and then I pulled down his driveway, and I said, "Look out the window." And he said, "My gosh, somebody's got stolen your car. It's sitting out there." But it was, and these phones, if you weren't in the car, it would blow your horn. And one time, Natalie and I were at a graveyard thing at a funeral, and I'd forgotten and left it on. And all of a sudden, this horn starts honking. Everybody looks around. Well, it's got to be me. I go over there. Natalie about to disown me. But you had a lot of funny stories.
Well, yeah, I mean, with the phone and the pay phone, and then even we talked about, because I'm so intrigued with people like you that started a business, and now Jimmy's taken it to other levels of, you didn't have planes back then to check on.
No, I drove all the time.
So you were telling me you put on, 60,000 miles?
One year I drove 50,000 miles in a car.
Yeah.
But, it's...
So you were hands-on back then?
Oh, yeah. But let me tell you one thing. Anybody who's achieved a modicum, that means small.
Thank you. Thank you, Pops. Thank you so much.
Small
I'm sure
amount.
everybody knew that but me. I couldn't spell it either. I can't say it or spell it, so we're going to go with small.
A modicum of success.
Was that Hebrew? What is that?
Anybody who's received a small amount, even a small amount of success in business and says they aren't lucky is not telling you the truth. You have to have certain breaks in your life to do well. And we were fortunate. We got in the business that suited us. We had a lot of good things happen. You mentioned the Flying J. They had a hard time. They were bankruptcy. We were able to take advantage of it. I'm basically a product of football. And we all know General Neyland's game maximums, and they apply to business. The team that makes the fewest mistakes wins. Now, it doesn't say, if you don't make mistakes, you aren't doing anything. But you can't make more mistakes than other people. And then play for and make the breaks. When one comes your way, score. We had a break in the Flying J, and we were able to take advantage of it. We got in the travel center business by a really break. There was a guy named Kenny Pritchard. He was a Amoco oil jobber in Jackson, Mississippi. He played football at Tennessee after I did, but I knew him. And a guy from Marathon Oil Company said, "You won't believe what Kenny Pritchard has done in Slidell, Louisiana." "What's that?" "Well, he's taken a convenience store and he's put a bunch of diesel pumps behind it." I said, "Well, that's the silliest thing I've ever heard of, but where is it?" And he said, Slidell, Louisiana. So Jimmy and I flew down there, saw it, copied it unmercifully. It wasn't our idea at all. Built the first one in Corbin, Kentucky. And now we're the biggest operator of travel centers. Now, would that have happened if we hadn't heard about this and I hadn't known the guy and he's willing to share the information? You know.
Lucky break.
Lucky break. You see what I mean?
Yeah, and you don't hear that anymore from social media, and nobody we talked about that. Nobody wants to talk about beginning, or I don't know a lot right now, and I'm just beginning. Nobody says that. Nobody says lucky break, and I was just thinking when he was saying lucky break, for me to train professional athletes, my lucky break came with Chad Pennington.
Yeah. You had a guy who was first round draft choice,
right?
You know,
then it steamrolled, and that was my lucky break.
And Todd. Todd, best baseball player ever come out of Knoxville.
Lucky break.
Lucky break. I mean, just they came to you, but
lucky break, and it worked out.
Yeah,
and they became
lucky break,
good.
and you can take almost anything that happens, and to do any good, you have to have a lucky break.
I love that. Can I trademark that?
Yeah,
it's pretty cool. Lucky break.
Yeah, but the thing is, then you have to take advantage of it.
Like a turnover.
Yeah,
that's what you're talking about in the football world.
Yeah,
I mean, we better score.
Yeah, if there's a turnover you pick it up on their 30-yard line. Now you've gotten a break, but if you don't score, if you just get a field goal, you got to take advantage of it. You got to get a touchdown because you're just going to get so many breaks. So you got to score when you get a break, and then remember the third game maximum. If at first a game or a break goes against you, don't slow down or get rattled, put on more steam. So in business, bad things are going to happen to you. We've had some bad things happen to us at Pilot, but we just got to keep going. And it's like in football. If you get behind, you don't give up, So
don't quit.
Don't quit.
You're going to be faced with adversities,
failures.
You're going
to be faced with adversity.
But you're saying your failures shouldn't outweigh your successes.
No, you can't have more failures than successes.
And then just brag about that, right?
That's
and
just
go, hey,
brag
I
about
failed, but I'm still going. Well, what are you going with?
No,
How are you succeed,
that's right. But you got to have a lot more successes. But you can't let a failure, I'm quitting. You know what I mean?
And you never thought, I mean, you're 88, right? Mm-hmm. You're correct, 88. Have you ever thought about doing anything different?
Oh, gosh, no.
No, you loved it.
So lucky it happened.
Loved it. You're a people person and so smart.
No,
so
I'm not smart.
You
lucky.
are smart.
I'm lucky. I'm lucky.
Yeah, I like the lucky break. Did you ever... I know where Jimmy is now with the Browns and with the Steelers, but there's so many rumors around of you trying to own a team before that.
Well, our family, we love sports, and long before Jimmy got the interest in the Steelers, we had talked to one of the funniest things, Jimmy. One time he said to me, we ought to buy the Yankees. And this was a long time ago. And I said, well, gosh, of course, they're worth billions now, but I said, they're worth $200 million or some great big figure then. And he said, well, maybe we could lease them. But we talked to, and I don't think it's any secret, we talked to the guy that owned the Minnesota Vikings. We talked to the man that owned the New Orleans Saints. We never got anywhere.
I've heard the Saints.
What?
I've heard the Saints.
And we talked to the guy that owned the Minnesota Vikings, Red, a guy from Texas, Red. I'll think of his name in a minute. But,
but that was a while ago.
That was a long time
ago.
Yeah, but it's been on our radar for a long time.
It has.
Yeah.
And then the way Jimmy talked about how it came. Anything with the Titans?
We talked to Bud Adams while he was still alive, but never could work anything out.
I met Bud Adams. Yeah, I was with Mr. Haslam. We went to his box.
You ate all the shrimp.
And he drank all the wine.
I
did eat all the shrimp, but I didn't drink any wine.
We were up in his box, and Charles, they had all this good-looking shrimp, and it's all gone. What happened to it? Charles ate it all.
That was in my heavy days. I was still growing. But that's the thing, is watching Mr. H move around then to other people his age. And I guess we could segue into the health and wellness of, I could talk all day with him. It's like talking to my dad. So,
how long have you been training?
23 years. 23 years, and I'll be doing the business 29 years this spring in 1991. But again, I mean, even in the box with Bud Adams and those older gentlemen, Mr. Haslam, a.k.a. Pops, looked so different and acted and moved so different than a lot of people.
I'm moving pretty slow now.
Well, and that's amazing, and we're starting a new podcast of talking about that, and I appreciate you coming on the show. And Laura, thank you so much for bringing him here for that. Because
of course, we got lost.
And that was my fault. I'll take it. Laura was getting edgy on the phone. I'm like, here it comes. Here, she must be from the north, or
she got handed off to me.
Yeah, I go here. Talk to. She's yelling at me. She's my mother yelling at me. Is we were down in your weight room at Pilot, which is an awesome wellness center, and I was training your daughter Ann Bailey, and you came in and we were talking, doing some balance stuff, not much, but just talking. And it just hit on me. I was like, "How are you so fit?" And I know you don't like where you are right now. I know, because the type A personality, the Woodgym guy that comes through here, that, goes to sleep about getting better, waking up about getting better. That's how I started the show. And that's how I brought all these people on that are constant pushing. And with Mr. Haslam, it's a good and a bad. If I was one of his sons or daughters, is that it's never enough. He constantly, and that comes, and if I wanted to talk about it deeper with Will Haslam, who done all his research with history of family, it has to come deeper, because it's never enough. And for years, I think Mr. Haslam knows I'm okay now at 51, but for a lot of years, what are your numbers like? Or is it 10% higher? What is it from the year before? He was always the guy pushing. It was not that it was never enough, but like, oh, well, Harrison's good, that's okay, but, is he going to make Pro Bowl? Is he going to go there? So we go back to your fitness. Is what makes you so fit? And I know all the rules, and I know the one rule. I've been doing pretty good with the one rule, and I really feel a difference of dropping weight. The oxygen feels better, but that goes back to being a part of watching some of the guys your age from at the pub or in boxes that are doing the things that you don't do. What makes you, where I've been bragging on it, and I created a whole other show, so fit? You go.
Well, in the first place, I've never in my life smoked, or I've never drank. Now, there's nothing wrong with drinking, but what I always say is, I look at everything, what's the upside potential and downside risk? So I just figured, I would never drink, and I've always exercised. Well, if you exercise enough, and I used to, years ago, run, then I rode a bike, but now I can't do either one. And then I lifted weights for a long time until my shoulders went bad. But if you work out and stay fit, you're going to feel better, but you're also going to think better. And I think part of of being able to think and having energy and everything, it comes back to physical fitness. And if you're 20 or 30 pounds overweight, you aren't going to think as well, you aren't going to work as well, you aren't going to, any of the things you need to do, you won't do as well. And the people, and quite frankly, the happiest people I know are the people who work out a lot. You train a lot of people, and you know what I mean?
Well, and we're going to cover a lot on this. If we have an extra, Lard, are we good like 20 minutes? Is that good? Okay, because the one thing he always said to me, and we could go on with all the stress. If you're in good shape, you could handle more stress. You don't have to go to 3 highball drinks at 5 because your day was crappy. You go get your workout, and endorphins release, and you get that energy. But I do remember him always saying this, is like, Charles, don't drink. And I'm like, Pops, but I don't drink and drive. I try not to drink when I go out, maybe the glass of wine. I go, if I do anything that's more than 2, I do it at home. And he goes, okay, so you think you're doing good doing that? I'm like, yeah, what's wrong with that? So, okay, I get blasted at home. What's the makeup on that? And he goes, well, let me give a case scenario to you. What if you get a phone call and Ashlyn, my oldest daughter, needs a ride home at 11:30, doesn't like the friend that she spends the night with, and they get in an argument. Can you get in a car and take her? And I remember you saying
what's the answer to that?
No, I can't.
Okay.
So you shouldn't do it anywhere of getting like that. I just remember you giving me, on and on of the lectures, which I take, because you became my father. My father was killed in 2003. Is, you really listen to that. Then you start going, now at 51, you're really not as invincible as you were at 32 or 34. If I could get away. Jimmy and I were talking about on the phone last night. He's like, you eat a piece of pizza and you put on 3 pounds.
Yeah.
It's totally different. Then you do the alcohol with the sugar. That's fat, and then you can't burn fat because you put sugar in your body. And, forget about the smoking thing. That's one thing I haven't done, thank the Lord. So how have you been so strict with everything you have to go to and entertain and throw the functions? I know the word just saying no, but are you so into health to where that is your release, your drug, so to speak?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think, you got to watch your weight. And I don't know, for the last 30 or 40 years, I weigh every morning. And now
I told you guys.
Now I'm down to a ridiculous amount because of all the things.
Well, even how strict he is now with your low sodium.
Yeah.
I mean, your meals are prepped.
Yeah, and don't eat salt and everything. But I think you have to always eat properly. You know what I mean? And don't overeat and watch your weight. And then, you have to get enough sleep. Like I used to go to bed at 9:30 or 10 and wake up at 5:30. Well, now I don't sleep that well, so I have to sleep later. Lord knows I don't get there as early as I used to. But you gotta watch your weight. You gotta watch what you eat. You gotta get plenty of sleep, and you have to exercise. And if you do those things, you'll feel so much better, and you'll be a much more productive person. It's simple.
Do you think that the sports made you that way?
Yeah.
Did your father stay on you?
Well, I just have always been involved in sports. And the advice I would have for parents is this. Get your kids involved in team sports, not individual sports.
And why is that?
Okay, you can play tennis and golf all the rest of your life, but you aren't going to be able to play football or soccer or basketball or baseball. You do it when you're young, you're in high school and you're college.
And what do you learn?
What you learn is this. If you're on a football team and 10 people do a great job and one person doesn't go, play doesn't work. That's what life's all about. You have a team. Okay, we've got 11 stores out there. You're going up the interstate. Go back to my first thing. If one of those stores isn't any good, you aren't going to stop at the next one. So teamwork. Basketball, teamwork. Baseball. Football's the ultimate teamwork. But all of them are teamwork. And I think that's what a younger person has to learn, that he or she has to work with other people, and teamwork is important. Now, the rest of your life, you can play golf and tennis and do all those things. But I think in your formative years, I'm a product of playing football, basketball, baseball.
Yeah, so and that goes back to what we talk about now that we see, and I see a lot the generation of the athletes I work with is, and Jimmy uses this word 100 billion times, accountability and self-awareness of not my fault. So do you think the team holds people accountable?
Yeah, I tell you, this is interesting. Rick Barnes, who's one of the most remarkable human beings, not even forget about his coaching ability I've ever been around, was down at Pilot, 3 or 4 months ago. And this is really good. He said, there are 4 things I have to do.
And who's Rick Barnes? Just so everybody knows.
Oh, I'm sorry, the Tennessee basketball coach.
And he's done some really amazing things
really
last couple
amazing
years.
Things. Yeah, he won over 30 games last year. I'm sorry. But anyhow, he said, there are 4 things. He said, listen. He said, if I don't listen to my players, how can I expect them to listen to me? Pretty good, right? Respect. If I don't respect my players, how can I expect them to respect me? The third is ego. I don't want them to have a big ego, so I can't have a bad ego. The fourth is accountability, what you said Jimmy was talking about. Okay, there are 10 seconds to go in the game. We're down by 1. I call the play. It doesn't work. That's on me. I call the play. One of my players doesn't execute. I'm going to hold them responsible. But if I call the wrong play, they're going to hold me responsible. Now, you think they're really good lessons for life. We think we know everything. We don't. We got to listen. And you have to respect other people. Now, you have to even respect people who have different views from you. They might be right. You know what I mean? And, and then you can't have a big ego. How many athletes you see whose big ego is their downfall? You know what I mean?
Yes.
Does Chet Pennington have an ego?
No. Harrison Smith? No.
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 You know what I mean?
Right.
They don't have big egos. And the fourth, they got to be accountable. If that person, an athlete, a business person, a person in your family, if he or she messes up, you have to hold them accountable. And if you mess up, they have to hold you accountable. The biggest thing people don't realize is life is a two-way street. And they're great examples. If you want people to listen to you, you have to listen to them. If you want people to respect you, you have to respect them. If you don't want people to have big egos and think they're hot shots, you can't be that way. And you got to hold people accountable.
And I think you've instilled that too. And I always go back to Jimmy, the way he works. And I always tell people how uber fit he is and how he tries to train 5, 6. Our big thing that Jimmy and I are on is do more.
Yeah.
Do more. He works, and I know Laura sees this. He works like he's still trying to get a job at Pilot. And that has to come from all those 4 or 5 things.
Well, and the thing is, if we expect people to work hard, the people in our top management have to work hard. And we have a deal at Pilot now. We have 4 values. Number 1, we value people. In anything you do, if these people aren't any good, you aren't going to be any good. So we value people. We value people who work hard. If you don't want to work hard, if we have a meeting of people at Pilot, bring them from all over the country, I say, if you don't work hard, we flew you in here, we'll get you a bus ticket back home, if you understand what I mean.
Do you notice that?
Yeah.
You don't fly back out.
And number 3, you have to work together. You got to have everybody here working together, okay? And number 4, you have to expect results. So you get good people, you work hard, you work together, you'll get results.
And that's what we talked about. And I know I bring Jimmy up again because it's a whole family unit of what you guys do. Is when he did take on the Browns, I mean, he'd sit right on the end of the bench, and I'm like, what have you learned the last couple of years? Like the first couple of years he was working with the Browns. He said, I have a lot to learn from this. And he goes, what do you think the difference is? And that's when we talked to Chad so much, because he could help the insights of talking about the culture of the team. You hear that all the time.
Yeah.
And I said, Jimmy, and Chad said this, he wasn't up there full time. So they didn't really know Jimmy and his work ethic.
Yeah.
And he didn't even work out down in the weight room like he does now.
Yeah.
And I think the team has taken on a whole different...
Yeah, because he works out and works hard and everything.
And they see that. They see it at Pilot, but they didn't see it. Yeah. They thought he was the owner that came in, and Pennington had all the names and the slogans or whatever everything was.
Yeah. And the biggest thing you learn in pro football is you have to have a quarterback. And it's kind of interesting when you think about, we're kind of getting off the subject here, but when you think about, who should you draft first? Well, you ought to draft a quarterback. But then who else beside a quarterback makes a difference, okay? A rush lineman gets a sack, okay? A defensive back, he gets an interception, okay? An offensive left tackle, he protects the quarterback. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay. A wide receiver, he can make a long play. They're the people you want to draft first. Because if you don't have those people, The other people you can get by with average players. You can't get by with average at those 5 positions.
I like that. Interesting.
Yeah.
And you're talking about teamwork.
Yeah, and you got to work together. You know what I mean? And you know, and you have to get a certain culture. The Browns didn't have that culture. They're getting it now. Belichick's got the culture in New England. You know what I mean?
How long has Belichick been there?
Oh gosh, he's been in New England. Well,
98?
He hadn't been there. He'd been there maybe 20 years. Yeah.
Right there, right?
Yeah.
Do you like
Well,
his style?
Brady's been the quarterback for 18 years,
Yeah.
so
And
Drew
Pennington.
Bledsoe was through. He'd been there 22 or 3 years probably.
Yeah.
You know, he was with the Browns and couldn't make it. You know something interesting we were talking about the other day? If I'd say who's the best coach in pro football, you'd say Belichick. Mm-hmm. Who's the best coach in college football?
Saban?
Who's the best coach in college basketball?
Well, you go with the Duke coach. I would.
Krzyzewski,
Right.
okay. Belichick was so bad, the Browns fired him. After 3 years, they were about. Duke had an athletic director who liked Krzyzewski, but they hung him in effigy when he lost to Carolina. Saban lost to Louisiana Tech his first year. You know what I mean? You have to have patience with coaches because it takes a while for them to get their culture installed. You understand what I mean?
I do, and I think that goes back to some of the podcasts that I'm listening to all the time. The beginning,
Yeah.
the novice making the mistakes of
Yeah,
hey,
you're
I
going to
don't
make
know.
mistakes as a coach and everything. But remember this. What's the first game maximum? The team that makes the fewest mistakes wins.
And they got to capitalize on the mistakes from the other
Play
team.
for 'em, make the breaks, one comes your way, score.
Lucky break.
Lucky breaks.
I like lucky.
I've gotten a lot of lucky breaks in my life. Yes.
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 To where you are.
To where I am is a succession of lucky things happening to me.
Now, people that don't know this, the viewers, listeners out there, and Laura knows this, and she's probably the only one in this room that understands this. For years, if he trained at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 9:30, this man would not come in gym clothes through the front door. I don't know. I'm going to give one insight to everybody out there, and I'll leave it that personal for anybody else. He would be fully dressed. He reminded me of the Bear Bryants of the world, of just so classy and so hard nosed. He'd be fully dressed. Go upstairs, because sometimes I go up, see him. Hey, you coming? He would undress, gym clothes, and then come back down, and you could hear him coming 3 floors up because he was talking to everybody. This man is about as humble as they get for everything that he's done and produced. All great children. I trained them all and their kids. It's amazing what he has done. But I do have one question.
What is it?
Have you ever had a hangover?
No. Oh, question. Have you?
Yes.
Okay.
Not-
Did you ever say, why did I do this?
Yes, and I always go, I'm never doing that again. Mr. Haslam.
Hey, tell him the advice I told you when your father died.
Oh, that story. Oh, my gosh. Okay. I'll make that, and then we can wrap it up, because I know he's so busy, and he won't sit in the Woodgym anymore with no sign. I got yelled at again from Laura. I always get yelled at. Okay. So I get a phone call. My father was in a motorcycle accident, and they're going to pull the plug on him. And I'm training people at the time, and I get this phone call, and I have to go back downstairs at Homburg Place. I had a 2-story. Remember, you come over and eat at Bogart's. We had a blast over there. And I go, holy smokes, I got to go downstairs and turn it on for these guys. Tim Irwin was in there, a judge here in town and a sports agent, played 18 years in the NFL. And he knew, and he gave me a big hug. I'm like, don't hug me. Don't hug me. Stevie Bailey, your son-in-law, gave me a big hug. Don't hug me, because it'll make me cry. I got to stay tough. And I was like, I got to call and cancel 4 o'clocks for Mr. Haslam. Well, at that time, he was getting the plane ready for me to fly up and pull the plug on my father. And it was going to take a couple hours. And I was like, well, I guess I'll go home and get sauced up and numb and, go do what I have to do. And this I was so mad at him. I mean, there were some names I was going over. So I called and go, Pops, I'm not coming over. I'm going to go home and, just wait on the plane. He said, bullshit, son. He goes, you're going to come over here and train me. It's the best thing you'll ever do is come over here and train me. And I thought at that point, you son of a bitch, you heartless, I was going not off on him, but going, you're going to make me drive from Hamburg place over to your place and load weights, spot them. You look great. Let's weigh and do everything. And it was the best piece of advice I ever gotten from this man. So, Mr. Haslam, thank you so much for coming on. I can't thank you enough. You are like a father to me, and your family has been so awesome and so loyal. And talk about a lucky break when your old trainer, Carlos, that's another story. Your old trainer, Carlos, calls me up and tells me, I got a guy that might want to work out with you. I'm changing businesses. I had to take his old trainer, and I was this close, Laura, because I was still in that New Jersey Italian swag of who in the F are you to come in here? And I'm going to work out you so I could train some business guy to see if I know what I'm doing to train this guy. And it was one of the best things I ever did. And thank you, Carlos, wherever you are, for coming in and me sucking it up and working with others of going, I'm going to do this anyway. I don't know where it's going to lead. And it led to one of the best things happened in my life. Thank you. And I love you so much.
God bless you, buddy.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. That wasn't bad, was it?
No. Shoot, no.